Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CIO Leadership Forum, Digital Disruption and the CIO Business Partner. My name is Vicki Lynn Brunskill with Argyle. It's great to have everyone joining us today. I have some important information to share with you, and then we'll turn the floor over to our esteemed opening keynote speaker. First, I just want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Adobe. Our sponsors are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience today. And anytime during the event, you can visit their virtual booth from the main agenda page. And that does include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. We also welcome you to stay socially connected during today's event. For those of you who are active on social media, please use the hashtag Argyle Digital and follow us on X, formerly Twitter, at Argyle Exec Forum. Also, please do follow us, Argyle, on LinkedIn for special announcements. I just want to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we've curated based on the feedback we've received over the years from our members. We've worked closely with our speaking faculty today to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints, and we appreciate our members' support of this policy. Finally, and most importantly, we want to hear from you. So during each session, we encourage you to submit your questions and comments in the Q&A box on your screen. Following each presentation, we've set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on those questions. Thank you all again for joining us today. Now let's get started. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Lonnie Snyder, Chief Technology and Information Officer for the 2026 Special Olympics USA Games. We are very excited to have Lonnie with us for his opening keynote presentation titled Accelerated Digital Transformation and the Evolving CIO. Welcome, Lonnie, and over to you.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. My name is Lonnie. Have the privilege of serving as the Chief Technology and Information Officer, as Vicki Lynn said, for the 2026 Special Olympics USA Games. I've spent most of my 28-year career in nonprofits. So I worked on the 2022 Special Olympics USA Games before and spent 8 years with Special Olympics International before then leading their enterprise applications and health technologies team. So it was a portfolio of about 20 systems used by a few thousand people around the world. So I would like to tell you today, or sort of propose to you, that the customer experience really aligns business and IT. So the CIO business partner is a great tagline. So the question is, do you really know who your customer is? The role, or our role as CIOs, is changing as we started heading into 2024. And I firmly believe that leaning into your customers is how you can be successful. So today I want to share with you three main things. So why, what, and how. So clicking through, I guess the first one is why Special Olympics? Well, this is you'll get two whys today. So Special Olympics is one of the greatest kept secrets that everyone thinks they know about. So their main mission is improving lives of people with intellectual disabilities. The main vehicle is sports, but they have health, they've got leadership, they've got a lot of really unique programs that help tell stories and truly change lives around the world. So the stats right now are about 6.5 million of our fellow citizens here in the United States have ID, and about 200 million people globally face a lot of horrible things, including injustice, exclusion, discrimination. So Tim Shriver, Special Olympics chairman, will tell you, outside of the United States, children with ID typically aren't allowed to go to school, right? So think about being involved in your community and how you're brought up. How can you be successful in life if you don't have access to those simple things that we all take for granted? Another really interesting, sort of shocking stat is people with ID typically die about 16 years sooner than the general population due to preventable things. And Special Olympics has an amazing health program that is designed to address this. There's an interesting stat there about workforce. So one of the challenges many folks that I talk to in and out of the tech industry face is a lack of good workers or just finding quality people. So right now, there's a huge discrepancy gap in employment for folks with ID, and this is actually one of our legacy pillars that we're focusing on for the 2026 USA Games. And finally here, the interesting thing is bullying. So there's a unified schools program that Special Olympics runs, and I firmly believe if this started back when I was in high school, almost 30 years ago, that we wouldn't have bullying in schools today. So this is a really interesting program, but the numbers 2 to 3x on the bullying rate. There's a question that just came in. Oh, is acceleration always appropriate, or should we slow down to evaluate? The answer is both. So you'll see that, yes, both. So Special Olympics, this is a really cool brand slide. So this basically says that everything I'm about to tell you is very legitimate. We're ranked as one of the most trusted nonprofits. Most folks that you talk to believe that our work is important or very important. And probably almost 40% of us have supported some Special Olympics program in the past. So Special Olympics exists in different levels in the United States. So Special Olympics International is sort of the top of the franchise. They accredit the 7 global regions of programs around the world. The United States has 52 separate 501c3s that are all Special Olympics programs. So Special Olympics, where North Carolina, where I now live, is a separate legal entity from Special Olympics Minnesota, who will host the 2026 games. And it gets complicated, but together they all make up several hundred programs around the world. And many of us have an immediate family member or know someone who has an intellectual disability. So for 2026, we spent a good chunk of last fall thinking about what we wanted to do different. So the USA Games are held every 4 years in the United States. So 2022, last summer in Orlando, Florida, thousands of people descended to support folks from all of the states as well as some Caribbean nations. And for us, we really wanted to focus on quality. So the mission is to create an inclusive event for people with and without intellectual disabilities, participants and non-participants, to celebrate everyone's ability. We want to focus on the highest level quality and leave a lasting legacy of change behind us in Minnesota. So our event will happen the beginning of June of 2026 at the University of Minnesota. Just some fun stats. We'll be about 4,000 athletes, about 1,500 coaches and delegation members to support them, 19 Olympic type team and individual sports. We need a workforce of about 10,000 people. Hint, hint, remember that for the end of the slides. And we'll have about 75,000 fans in Minnesota. The event looks a little bit like these are sub events that make up the Big E event, but the law enforcement torch run was actually founded in 1981. And this year, and they've actually surpassed the really interesting mark of raising $1 billion for Special Olympics globally. So this is a really important part of the movement. Of course, there'll be an opening and closing ceremonies. Of course, we'll have athlete villages and other activities. But the health work that I talked about earlier, so Special Olympics started its Healthy Athletes program in 1997, and they've done to date over 2 million screenings in 7 disciplines from head to feet. They've trained almost 300,000 healthcare professionals and students in how to work with this population. I first saw this program in 2013 in Pyeongchang, South Korea. I got to see the health programming in action, and we were standing at a snowshoeing venue, and I looked down, was lined up to watch a race, and I said, "Excuse me, how does that young man down there from Africa, who's never seen snow before in his life, know how to do this? Like, how does this work?" They said, "Well, in countries like that, they basically would strap cardboard to the bottom of their shoes and then run in sand. And if they're fast enough, they qualify and they make it to a World Games." And that literally blew my mind. My American head didn't know how to deal with that. So they get to come, someone donates snowshoes, they do a qualifying round and they go. Well, they fired off the gun and this young man stood confused in the line and they sent him to get screened. They come to find out he couldn't see more than a hand in front of his face, but he wasn't verbal and he couldn't tell anyone. I said, "How did he get here?" So he held on to his coach's sleeve and ran as fast as his coach ran, and he made it to a World Games. Well, thanks to really smart people who figured out some adaptive vision exams and great sponsors and partners, they literally cut glasses on site. So this young man, his life was changed forever because he could finally see, right? And there are just hundreds of examples like that. In Orlando last summer, we did over 13,000 health screenings and gave out several hundred pairs of glasses and hearing aids. If you want an emotional moment, watch someone get fitted for a hearing aid and hear for the first time, or call home and talk to their mother and hear their mother for the first time. That will get you. So beyond the games, we want to do a lot of things for legacy. So we're thinking about additional health and wellness programming. We're thinking about athlete employment and giving back to the community. So why? This is my why. These are cute pictures of my three youngest children. My wife and I have a 27-year-old daughter, a 25-year-old son. He's still with us, and we've adopted three children with special needs. So leading up to the 2015 Special Olympics World Summer Games, I attended an event in Nebraska. We took over their event to test all of the technology we were building with Microsoft to take the game systems to the cloud. And I got called into a mission moment and heard someone's story about how he and his wife got involved in Special Olympics. And the short version is he and his wife were in their 30s expecting their first child, gets the call, come to the hospital. It's time. He goes, they rush, the delivery happens, and everyone leaves the room, and he's freaking out, like, someone tell me what's going on. Finally, someone comes back and says, I'm so sorry, your son has Down syndrome. Like, just pause for dramatic effect. Think about getting that news delivered to you. We don't jump up and down going, ooh, I hope I have a Down syndrome baby. We all want a healthy child, but that's hard. That's heavy. So the person leaves the room. His wife is there quietly sobbing, and it's getting dark, and they've got family coming in from across the state. And he's trying to think of dig deep. I need to give my wife something supportive. What will provide comfort now? And he said, I don't know where it came from, but what came out was at least we have Special Olympics. Wow, right? So I go home and I tell my wife that story, and I'm crying telling this guy's story, and she looks at me and says, "Okay." The backstory is for 8 years she's been pushing to expand our family, and I kept saying, "What's wrong with you? Let's we're almost done with kids. Let's get another dog." And P.S. the other dog didn't work. So we started our journey towards adopting Miles on the left. He's now 9, but we brought him home in January of 2017. He was 2.5, beautiful little boy with Down syndrome. A couple months later, she said, Don't you think we should do it again? And I said, Don't you think we should pay off the first adoption first? Because international adoptions are quite expensive. And we ended up pursuing Maddie in the middle. So my daughter Maddie is now 7. We brought her home in September of 2019. She also has Down syndrome. And then my family moved. I got this job opportunity to move from Northern Virginia, because I worked in DC all my life, to Orlando, Florida, and work on the 2022 USA Games. Well, in the process, Michelle, my wife, has been to Taiwan multiple times on advocacy trips. She's helped hundreds of families around the world find their forever children, find their forever homes, and done a lot to connect and support people globally. So her heart was set on Magnolia, the beautiful little girl on the right. Now, Magnolia has quadriplegic CP, cerebral palsy. So she has a lot more challenges than most children, but she is an amazing, bright little girl who is fully alive and very present and knows everything that's going on around her. So her disability was caused by a traumatic birthing accident. The hospital would have been sued, and probably a doctor lost his license if it happened here in the United States. But we brought her home Christmas Day of 2021. Now, why is this important? I believe everything happens for a reason. And going back to 2013, now 10 years ago, that event changed my entire worldview and my perspective on life. I left that event exhausted, working 18-hour days for 2.5 weeks, and came home and apologized to my then millennial teenagers for telling them they were silly for thinking they could change the world. So this work is really important, and the why is just right in front of you. I want to make the world a better place for my children so they're seen as normal and accepted. We have a long ways to go. Now, what are we doing for the USA Games? Technology really snaps in and underpins our quality pillar. So we want to deliver the highest quality event for all of our spectators, stakeholders, and participants. So this is really anchored in user experience design and understanding what matters to people before, during, and after the event, and just those must get right elements. This is a slide of tech on a page, right? So if you talk to the CTO of the 5-ring Olympics, he's a really nice guy. He and I basically have the same job to do. He just has a much larger budget. and the Paralympics that come right behind the Olympics have almost the same level of budget that he does. It's really interesting, but we have the same challenges. So much like you and your businesses, we do the same exact stuff. We're just trying to do it on a different scale. And events come and go. So you think about how your length of contracts and all the things that you federate and all the things you set up have to be undone at the end of the event. But this is basically what we do. Uh, I am a firm believer in looking to the past to help inform the present and the future. And this is a slide of research that we did leading up to the 2022 USA Games. And I believe, maybe aside from number 6 and number 7, these needs that were spoken to by Special Olympics athletes are needs that every human on planet Earth has. I want to be celebrated. I want to find purpose and opportunity. I want to be connected with people. So we had to think about how we transcended this into a digital experience. So we created a first ever fan engagement platform. We did a lot of cool stuff. We let people find and follow athletes, cheer them on. We allowed volunteers, our 10,000 volunteer workforce number that I mentioned, to self check in, and almost 50% of them utilize that. We did augmented reality wayfinding with Google Maps. You could see a screenshot there of holding your phone out and seeing the sidewalk in front of you. That was pretty cool. It actually worked. Push notifications. We scheduled those 13,000 screenings. We had live queue showing you a number of people in queue, and people were notified when they won their competitions. It was really amazing experience. So what? So 27,000 people downloaded this app that we created. It was a really interesting experiment to see if it would work or not. 200 plus thousand sessions during the games. And we had about an 81% adoption rate, which I thought was pretty good given we had almost no marketing budget to tell anyone about this. It just happened organically. Athletes were really excited and amazed at getting the notifications. Folks spoke to their profile that showcased their bio. We called it a hero profile, and that actually helped them build self-confidence. We made it to the top 10 on the Android store. We didn't quite surpass the NFL, maybe this time on the Apple store. But my favorite use case that was an accident that we didn't plan for was an athlete got loose in the middle of the night, and they were trying to reunite them with their coach and their delegation. And the games app was actually used to figure out who this person was because she was nonverbal and couldn't say who she was. She didn't have her credential. So you never know when technology is actually going to save a life. It's not just metaphoric, but it's pretty cool. This represents, and I promise we're almost done. We've got a few more minutes till we get to the Q&A, but this really showcases the so what factor for the stakeholder design. So we've got here our stakeholder groups. We have the top 4 learnings or themes, and then we've got our vision statement for our new mobile app. So um, on the stakeholder groups, every Special Olympics major event has an athlete advisory council. This time we've created 5 councils. So we not only want to hear from and learn from athletes and test things, we want to talk to delegation members. We want to talk to families who support the athletes. We want to talk to the volunteers that are the backbone of our workforce, and the officials that actually, execute the games. Without them, we wouldn't have officials on the courts with whistles and support competition happening. The secondary tier to that is thinking about the honored guests and the VIPs, the sponsors that help pay for the event, the media. Without media coverage, we need to tell important stories, and then really the community and fans and how do they snap in. So the theme here, we talked to all of these groups. We heard about 130 some different design considerations across the event sub events, and I put the top 20 surprises on a page, and we had to refine and refine and refine and simplify. So the top 4 themes of hundreds and hundreds of hours of research of different stakeholder groups was really, number 1, keep it athlete focused, highlight the importance of an athlete's experience before, during, and after the event. Keep it simple. You've heard KISS before, keep it simple, stupid. This is one of many touch points, and this technology needs to be so simple a caveman could do it, to borrow from the Geico commercial. So this has to just work. We need to be smart. So here's where optimizing schedule and deploying generative AI comes in for us. We want to offer smart suggestions, enhance information sharing, and then also the best of content. So we want to enable this to capture and curate really good stuff and share it out. So we've got a very ambitious mission statement there, a question that came in was, what's the number one digital transformation lesson your organization's learned during the processes I've shared? And for me, I think it's just listen, shut up and listen. Right? You don't know what your stakeholders are going to say. Every day, my wife reminds me to get out of my damn box. Every day, I love her for it. You never know what it's like to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And so you really need to understand what they need, what their pain points are, and think about how you can put yourself in that person's position and think how you could help solve the challenge for them. This is what we're going to do this time around for 2026. So we've done first phase of our app with a partner to create some amazing screens that we've shared with our stakeholder groups and refined and feel we've gotten right. So content generation, you can follow athletes, you could follow a sport or an entire delegation. We can celebrate and cheer people. Generative AI, like I mentioned, for the smart suggestions. If you've got 3 hours of downtime, what should I do? Well, here, if you're a delegation member, if you're from Minnesota, why don't you go support this person, who's doing powerlifting now, or doing a swimming event or an athletics event. If you're a family member with downtime, you've never been to Minnesota, go check out the Mall of America. There's 5 million amazing square feet of retail space if you love retail therapy and in an indoor amusement park, right? And then we want to let people personalize this. We want to let them download the stuff they put in and make it really easy to access the results. Another question that came in, what's the most innovative way you've seen leaders keep their teams strong amid the pressures of rapid digital transformation? I think the answer to that question is focus on a North Star. So by the work we did last fall with that mission statement of our three main pillars of what we were going to do, that's what kept us grounded. And every time someone would ask what we were doing and why we were doing it, you've probably heard you need to give the same message 7 different times to 7 different audiences. You have to constantly be a cheerleader, reminding people of what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're getting everyone in the boat, and why we're going to be better because of it. Those advisory councils actually help us. So they'll be our evangelists and mouths to spread the good word to others and to remind them about what we're doing and how we sought all of these stakeholders buy-in. I've got a quick short video, and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A. I love that video. Here's my email address for those that want to reach out or ask questions, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. We would love to have your help and support. Like I said, we're looking for 10,000 volunteers. I'm actually looking for volunteer tech leaders that will help us during the week of the games in different aspects of executing operations, sports, timing systems, etc. So 2 additional questions came in while that video was going. How do we evaluate disruption as to optimizing productivity? So I believe the answer is to start with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey would say in the Seven Habits book. So thinking proactively about what you want this to be. When we started the project this time with the first phase, we really did the whole stakeholder visioning, but we went almost as far as writing the press release of the so what after this was over. What do we tell the world about what we did? So if you were going to eulogize whatever project you're about to embark on, what would you say? How would you talk about it? How would you want to inspire and make people feel? And what are the results? So what's the so what factor? That's, I think, the most important thing to do there. Um, the other thing for evaluation is we actually developed our own set of OKRs, objectives and key results. So measure manage what you measure, and there's a great book on OKRs, but really it's what are the key things that we're going to do and how are we going to measure that success. So we've literally got 5 of them. We've got lots of metrics, and we're being intentional as we develop the software to make sure everything is built in so we can count those results. The next question, everyone is selling AI as the next best thing. What do you believe will be the most effective AI use cases for IT leaders in the coming months? Um, Honestly, I think generative AI in terms of helping solve real world problems are probably the best thing. People want to talk to their phones. I have an Apple Watch. This isn't an Apple commercial. Sorry, Adobe. Thank you for your support of this program. But I literally talk to my watch all day long of remind me to do this, log this meeting, email this person, text this person. I need technology to work for me and to make my life simpler. So like I said, I have 3 young children and 2 dogs. Things are a little chaotic around my house in a good way, but I'm super busy and I don't have time. So I need to use things to optimize and make that work for me. In terms of the app, when I talked about generative AI and smart suggestions, we originally tried spinning that as a itinerary, and no one got the joke. I thought it was funny. So smart suggestions, how does AI suggest things to you? How do we put things on your calendar automatically, or do suggest that you go to this health screening types thing? The next question is what next? What's next in terms of game changer technology? Any promising innovations or apps you've seen? I believe everyone that's doing anything well right now is thinking about how they can solve a business problem, right? So back to the customer and that business relationship. If you're not thinking in terms of how are you solving your colleagues' challenges or how are you making it easier for your customer to do business with you or drive more revenue to the company, that that's the main thing to focus in on. When you put your shoes in your customer's perspective and think about them, and work backwards, beautiful things will happen. So the next question is, what is the best way to take a team pulse check? So I like to have standing meetings or weekly check-ins where we go deep. And if you're running from a playbook, you've got a well-defined playbook of everyone's roles and responsibilities, who's doing what on the team, how you're checking in, how you're measuring success. You've done that work ahead of time to define that, so everyone knows exactly how they fit in. Um, my favorite author, Chris Laping, would say, and he wrote People First and Then Things. People need 2 things from their leaders. They need love and they need clarity. So if you know that your leader has your back and has your best intention at heart and is working to produce clarity among the team so everyone knows their role and how they fit in, you can do beautiful, amazing things together. Next question. Looks like 2 more questions here. We're about out of time. Can one uh, Let's see here. One, two, team. Can one do pulse checks too often? What's a good occurrence? Yes. I've had bosses that wanted to check in with me every hour. That's not helpful. During events, if you've been part of events before, they're often chaotic. You have a standing meeting, at 7 a.m. or 6:30 where everyone's talking about what's going on for the day. You kind of execute, you have an end of day wrap up talking about, what happened. You've got a command center, you're reporting on incidents and live stats. But outside of an event where you're literally executing something and thousands of people are there, I think you shouldn't check in more than once a day formally. Honestly, it's okay to send a quick question via Slack or Teams if you need help or you don't want people to get stuck, but you want to give people space and respect to work. And then I believe that's the last question. So I'd like to send this back to Vicky Lynn. Vicky Lynn, take us home.
Thank you, Lonnie. What an inspiring and insightful presentation. Thank you so much for that. I would like to thank everyone else for joining us today for this session. And as a reminder that this session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. Thank you again, Lonnie, for a fabulous presentation.
Thank you.